Welcome to Hood Champion Boxing and Sports. In boxing, you find a way to win or you find a way to lose. Big fight coming up with Canelo Alvarez, Dmitry Bivol. A lot of people aren't, a lot of, I would say, casual fans who just know of Canelo Alvarez, know of him as being probably the biggest name in boxing, know of him as being a guy who can get in there and systematically break opponents down, but who don't really understand Bivol. I think they're not giving Bivol a fair chance to beat Canelo. And I think any true boxing fan understands that Dmitry Bivol, he's a legitimate threat to Canelo Alvarez. And that's like the question that's kind of circulating through the boxing communities right now is Bivol has this pay-per-view defense, and I'm bugging, right? Here we go. This pay-per-view defense coming up against, Canelo, this Saturday night. And there's some people who are still questioning this man's abilities. And I don't see how you can question Bivol as whether he's almost qualified enough to get in the ring with Canelo Alvarez. Bivol's probably the biggest threat Canelo Alvarez has faced. So the answer would be, the question is going to be, as far as Bivol, man, is this pay-per-view defense against Canelo Alvarez even going to be worth the money? Because so many people are expecting Canelo to just wash Bivol. And I think that's extremely offensive to Bivol and everything that he's accomplished. So the answer would be yes. He qualifies to be in there, and the pay-per-view is definitely worth it. You guys are going to see, you could see the shocker of the decade, because if Bivol gets in there and clips Canelo, that's going to turn the boxing world upside down. But just because Bivol is a legitimate threat, it doesn't mean that he's necessarily going to win the fight. Probably won't win, to be honest with you. When you look at Canelo being like the favorite to win the fight, like 4-1, but you still got to give him a chance. But Canelo is, I think the majority will concur, number one on the pound for pound list, on everybody's pound for pound list. Just in this generation, you get these guys that come along who just tend to evolve at fighters and do amazing things in the ring and make great fighters look average. And that just shows their superiority as far as their IQ, their physical abilities, their mentality, their trainer, their discipline, and just their whole team. These guys find a way to win. And as a result, put their opponents in losing positions. But Bivol, like I said, has a better chance of beating Canelo Alvarez than any other opponent he's faced, in my opinion. And I think going back to Kovalev, where Kovalev got stopped in the 11th round, a lot of people felt there was something fishy about that. Kovalev just didn't look, in my opinion, he didn't look like the beast that had gotten it with Edgar Alvarez and won in the rematch. That we've never seen Kovalev just fold and fall out like that. And then Canelo moves up all those weight classes and he's able to do it. I guess everything's possible, right? But anyway, since then, Canelo has gone on and just clipped a number of fighters. And when Canelo wins his fights, they're like it's like one-sided. It's like he's in there with guys with no confidence that are amateurs. And I think when you understand his mentality, his discipline, I think what was his slogan? No boxing, no life. Like, he really walks the walk, talks the talk. And when you do that, when your effort is greater, your reward's going to be greater. And that's why you see Canelo being rewarded, received praise, getting the accolades that he's been getting, because he just lives the life. But, he got in there. Canelo fought. Well, we know recently he went in there and banged up Billy Joe Saunders. There were Caleb Smith, Caleb Plant, and a guy named, I think, Yildirim. But he went in there and it just made it look easy. And out of those names, Billy Joe Saunders and Caleb Plant are solid fighters. You know, those guys aren't walking the parks. But at the same time, when you look at on paper, I would say, and I'm of the opinion that Bivol is better than Plant. Bivol is better than Billy Joe Saunders. That's just my opinion. Now, you may disagree, but that's your right. We're entitled to our own opinions, not our own facts. But at the same time, you got to look at those foundations. And Bivol has a very, very strong foundation. One, he already has a WBA title, so that's what they're getting ready to fight for. But he, as an amateur, and this is why you hear a lot of boxers and boxing analysts, boxing historians, when they talk about a boxer, they want to know more about them as amateurs, if they have that amateur pedigree. You know, that sets these boxers up to see so many different styles. Like, you just can't teach experience. So those guys who don't have those expanded amateur backgrounds or no amateur background, they turn pro, they kind of get slow leaked the first 10 to 15 fights, and they're learning on the job, right? They're at a disadvantage. But those guys who have seen different styles, fought different fighters from all around the world, you got to give them the upper hand or give them the nod going into a fight to be the favorite. So where Bivol, this man had 268 wins, 15 losses underneath the Russian amateur program. 268 wins and 15 losses. That's unheard of. Extremely impressive. And since he turned pro back in I think 2014, man, he's just continued to build a very, very strong resume. And I think two of the big names that jump out is those fights he had in 2018 and 2019 where he fought Sullivan Barrera. And then he went on and fought Isaac Chilemba. Then you know about Joe Smith Jr. That was his recent fight. And even Jean Pascal. I know when it comes to Jean Pascal, think a lot about, PEDs and, illegal drugs he was taking and stuff to try to give him an advantage in a fight, which I believe that if he got caught doing it for one fight, he's probably done it before and just never got caught. And it is what it is. But Jean Pascal is no pushover. Joe Smith, he clipped Bivol in one of those rounds towards the end of the round. Another 30 seconds, we could be talking about Joe Smith fighting Canelo, but it didn't happen. And Sullivan Barrera, especially at that time, Sullivan Barrera was a tough fight. But Bivol, something about those hands. Stop a guy in his tracks when he hits him. So you can't doubt Bivol's ability. But when you look at what's happened since then, going into like his most recent fights, Bivol's no weakling, man. So when you see him getting in there and failing to stop like his last 6 opponents, you got to look at what Canelo's done, where Canelo's in there stopping everybody. But just because Bivol hasn't stopped like his last 6 opponents, that doesn't mean he doesn't have punching power. But you gotta question his punching ability to a certain extent. But just because a person doesn't stop someone doesn't mean that they can't crack and they won't stop their next opponent. Now, him getting there with Canelo, who has one of the best defenses in boxing, I mean, a punch can get through. But more than likely, I would have to just look at how Canelo has performed, especially since since Jose Cotto, because that's where we've seen him get rocked. And he's gotten touched in other fights too, but that was the one where we seen him like he was out on his feet. But he's learned. Canelo learns from his mistakes, and his defense is one of the best right now. So I'm not saying Bivol can't get through there, but I'd give him a chance to touch Canelo up a little bit more than other opponents. With cleaner shots, harder shots, and more consistently putting pressure on Canelo, especially if Canelo's just going to walk in with that high guard. I just think Canelo's going to have to do a bit more than just come behind the high guard because, you know, that could be, it could be problematic for Canelo, letting somebody who can crack like Bivol at 175 just come in and let his hands go, and he thinks he's going to pick them all off with that high guard. That's just, I don't think that's very intelligent. But that said, Bivol, like I said, he's no weakling, man. He doesn't have that concussive power, but then again, he's not tickling you when he gets in the ring. He's not slapping guys. He has heavy punches, man. And when he fought Jean Pascal, as a matter of fact, Jean Pascal was trying to get his momentum going, but he was being stopped over and over and over in his tracks when Bivol was touching him. Like Jean Pascal just couldn't figure it out. That's because of the power that this guy possesses. But then again, you look at Kovalev, you draw a comparison between him and Bivol. Same kind of thing. Super heavy-handed, getting in the ring, stopping guys in their tracks. But then look at what Canelo did to Kovalev. Doesn't mean he's going to do that to Bivol, but you got to look at that too, right? We have to be fair, and that's what I try to do when I look at these fights. A lot of times, getting in the comments and looking what people are posting, people are they have blinders on, man. They just see what they want to see. They let their emotion get into it, and they don't even want to hear anyone else's opinion. And I just think sometimes we have to be able to critically think things through and perform critical analysis. And in doing so, you have to welcome the other side of the argument. And like I've said, I'm a black and white person, but there's sometimes when we got to deal with the gray. But when you get into the gray area, which is what happens down in the comments in a lot of these videos, that's where you see, you get some good dialogue going, but then you get a little bit of little crap in there too. But I just think you have to be fair when giving a fighter a chance to go in there, especially these guys who are more than qualified to be champions and maybe have never received an opportunity. Bivol just happens to be a champion. But you can't just come now and say Bivol's going to meet the same fate as Kovalev, because Kovalev took a little bit of damage. He got touched up a little bit before Alvarez got in there with him, so that's something else to look at. Bivol hasn't taken that kind of damage. So let's just be fair and not take it to the stupid and come out here and just try to poke holes in everything because it's not what you want to hear. Because we're entitled to our own opinions. We're not entitled to our own facts. And if you're living in that kind of life, you're probably miserable. But kind of, continuing on with what I just said about giving Bivol a chance, you got to look at the size of this man. 6 foot, Canelo Alvarez, 5'8". Look at the difference in reach. You got to be fair. There's a couple inches in reach on Canelo. All those things matter going into a fight. And probably the most important thing is, even when he was fighting as an amateur, Bivol always fought as a light heavyweight. That makes a big difference. So if he's in there fighting at 175, what's this guy walking around? So all the physical advantages are with Bivol. And that matters going into a fight. But when you have a special fighter in there, like Canelo Alvarez, he's able to nullify and take so many things away from that fighter to where he makes him look average. Now, I'm not saying he's going to do that with Bivol, but he's consistently shown that he can do that. So you got to expect that when he gets in there to kind of see a similar performance. But it has everything to do with, I just think, Canelo's style. And as far as Bivol, like Canelo's knocking people out, stopping them, Bivol's not. And I don't think it has anything to do with one being stronger than the other. I just think stylistically, that's what you get from a guy like Bivol, and that's what you get from somebody like Canelo. When you have someone who's like a polished technician, like Bivol, they tend to, it's almost like a Shakur Stevenson, right? They almost want to baffle opponents instead of just hurting and getting them out of there. And then when the time is right, then apply the pressure and get them out of there. And that's what you have in Bivol, man. Like a really polished technician who is going to frustrate opponents. And then right when he has the opportunity, that power that we think he doesn't have, it shows up out of nowhere and he gets fighters out the ring. And I think going here with Canelo, we could see him trying that approach. Will it work? We have to wait and see. But I believe he's definitely going to try that approach. And but Canelo Alvarez is a good defensive fighter, and his offense plays off of his defense. So I think it could be the fight could be very exciting or it could be very boring. But it is what it is, man. Bivol, I just think, has an uphill battle against Alvarez because, like I said, with Alvarez is just in the ball ringer. Go ahead and dead that, right? But Canelo Alvarez just has a way he can get in there and dissect opponents, break them down systematically. And it's not only physically, it's mentally what Canelo Alvarez does to his opponents. Now, as whether he's going to be able to do that against Bivol, I don't know. But Bivol has a good chance of beating Canelo Alvarez, and I don't think anybody should doubt him. And if he does get in the ring this weekend and he clips Canelo Alvarez, to be honest with you, I won't be shocked because of everything that I just mentioned. At the same time, I do feel Canelo should win the fight based on his past performances, what he's been able to do to the bigger men, and his ability to find a way to win no matter what and come out victorious. But I just think Bivol is a different kind of threat that he hasn't seen. And I think if Canelo goes into this fight just thinking he can walk him down behind a high guard, that's going to be disastrous for Canelo, in my opinion. But I guess we'll wait and see. I'm not going to call a shocker on this one yet. But I think this fight is tougher for Canelo than what y'all think. I understand Canelo's trying to legacy, get titles, fight champions. Some people call them cherry picks. Let me tell you, maybe some of those other fighters, the Caleb Smiths and all that crap, Alderem, whatever the hell his name was, maybe those look like cherry picks because they were they were champions, but they were probably not the strongest in the division, in their divisions, but they were still champions. But this guy here, this is a legitimate threat. And if Canelo gets through him and stops him, Canelo deserves all the praise in the world right now. But if he stops this guy, oh man, there's nothing left to debate about when it comes to Canelo and him cherry picking and everything else. Got to give him credit. And then after he fights him, everybody's still going to say, well, now he should fight Benavidez. Now he should fight Boo Boo Andre. Not Boo Boo Andre. Now he should fight Jamal Charlo. You know what? And I don't disagree. I'd like to see those fights. But if he clips him with everything he's done already, this man, to me, has nothing left to do. But it would be good to see him go on, because then that doesn't leave this gap for all the what ifs. If he comes and clips Jamal and Benavidez, those are the only two names. If he clips Jamal and he clips Benavidez, there's nothing left for this man to do. I mean, he got to fight Triple G. I think he's going to kill Triple G personally. Triple G is not the same, but that's a whole nother video. But I think Canelo, if he can get past him, which is not going to be an easy task, the only two fights left for him to fight, in my opinion, is Charlo and Benavidez. But anyway, leave your comments below. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Shout out to all the veterans. I appreciate the support from everybody. Y'all keep safe. I'm in the breeze.